sure that today's session will definitely be a rich reflectance of all your experience and achievements so far. The session is ready to be addressed by you, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this lovely introduction. I'm indeed honored to be means at this prestigious platform. I thank all the faculty members and the management for giving me this opportunity. Without taking much time on this, the topic, the impact of pre-incubation on aspiring student entrepreneurs, particularly the incubation as such, is a very important thing. Because the AICT recently came up with the policy called National Innovation for Student Startup Policy, which was exclusively for the students and faculty members. They came up with this policy in 2019, and they very well clearly defined that how a pre-incubator has to be set up, and how and when incubators should be set up, in a campus, and in what ways they can help the students and the faculty entrepreneurs within a campus. So in regard to this, many faculties and students, they have a common doubt that they don't have a clear understanding about what is a pre-incubation center and what is an incubation center. So today I'm not going to give any motivational talk or anything. I just want to give an informative talk about this policy, that is the NISP policy defined by the MHRD Innovation Cell and AICT, because this is very important. Because once it's been
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. So, once this is clearly understood that what this policy is all about, and means once the institute understands it clearly, it will be very easy for them to means take it to the next level in terms of the startup creation. Because the need of that is a startup creation rather than incubating a startup inside a campus. And especially engineering colleges, because that's what I have seen. Because a lot of innovations are happening, but they're finding it very hard to take it to the next level, to commercialize it or to make it as a startup. So how to do that? Now there is a structured way of doing the startup creation, and that's what this pre-incubation talk is all about. So it's a process, and we have a methodology for that. Now over the past years, what I have noticed is that in any educational institute or society, there are only 1 or 2 persons who are really entrepreneur. So whenever there is an ED program or anything, what happens is just a student or faculty, they just come in and they just listen to a lecture of entrepreneurship, and then they go out, and at the end they don't materialize for some reason, because it is not in a very systematic or in a continuous way. It's been the program in which it should be designed. It's all discrete. So how to put together in a systematic way, and how to bring the change within the campus or within the entrepreneurial people, that whoever has that mindset. So the focus is on how to capture that 1% of the student or faculty. Say for example, if there are 2000 students in a campus, like say, and we know that only 20-30 will be at max, who are really entrepreneur. So how to identify them, pick them and train them, and then motivate them, and then ultimately handhold them. That is very important during this pre-incubation process. So whatever being said is already said. I hope my screen is visible. If anyone can please reply in the chat. Or
yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
As per Andre Guide, he said that whatever being said is already said and there are tons of articles available on the internet. But as I said, the one thing that is missing is the coherent, and how we make it a continuous process. So that is what I'm going to tell you today. So how to put together in a very systematic way. Now, before we move ahead, I would like you to please watch this video.
What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? In a world of inaction, overpromising and underdelivering, every second man seems to claim himself an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone that would never call himself an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone that is happy to work while all others are out partying. An entrepreneur's drug is success. He is addicted to success. And finally, the entrepreneur knows one simple fact: I will make it, maybe not immediately, but absolutely and definitely.
So now let's come to the point that who is an entrepreneur? Means an entrepreneur, means before I start, I just want to give a means very clear definition for an entrepreneur and a businessman. So that means you don't have any confusion in that. So many of you might be understanding, but there might be some faculties or students who are not aware of this thing. So if you read the first line, according to me, an entrepreneur is nothing but a technopreneur who brings in unique idea to solve a problem and start a startup business. But unlike a businessman who start a business on a very old concept, a traditional way. Say, for example, tomorrow you want to start a jewelry business or you want to start some grocery store. It doesn't fall under the entrepreneurship, at least according to startupindia.gov. It should have some kind of an innovative component to your business model. Or it can be a process innovation, or it can be a product innovation, something you have to bring in terms of innovation to the table. So that is so that it can be called as a startup business. Now if you talk about India, I hope I'm audible. All right. So if we talk about India, India is the third largest startup hub, and means the majority of the startup founders, they are of 28 years, and 9% of the total startup founders are women. And means the demography of startup founders, like I said, that 31% they lie between 26 and 30 years. But reconnecting order.
This meeting is being recorded.
I hope I'm audible now and I'm visible. There was some technical glitch, I think.
Yes, sir, now it is.
Okay.
It was breaking in between.
Yes, maybe there was some technical lag. So I was talking about the India. Like, India is the third largest startup hub, and the average age of the entrepreneur is 28 years, and 9% of the total startup founders are women. But means if you talk about the education of startup founders, 35% are the engineering graduates, 26% are the MBAs, and means then 15% and 10% they have other graduations with them. So education is important if you want to build up a startup. But what is a startup exactly? So of course, means by this time you all know, because there are a lot of talks about innovation and about entrepreneurship. So I think you would be knowing about the difference between an entrepreneur and a businessman. And so in regards to that, means the central government, the DPIIT, has given up a definition. Now DPI is nothing but a nodal agency under the Ministry of Commerce, and the nodal agency is nothing but a Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. Now they have renamed it as DPIIT, and they have clearly defined how a startup should be registered under them. So it should work towards innovation, that is mandatory. And it, as I said, it can be a development of improvement of a product, a process, or a services, or it can be a scalable business model with high employment generation and wealth creation. These last 2 points about employment generation and wealth creation, these are the 2 things that they have added recently. That meaning, apart from the innovation, if it can be scalable, or if you can bring more employment to a given community, or if you can create a wealth, an enormous wealth, then that can also be defined as a startup company. So the main thing now is that you are clear to the definition. I want to give a clear idea about what a pre-incubators are and what an incubation does. Now, pre-incubation comes in a very early stage, maybe in a very seed stage. You haven't formed the company yet, and maybe you have an idea, or you may not have an idea, but sometimes the students are always passionate about some technology or something. So like a student can say that I'm good in artificial intelligence, I'm good in machine learning, I'm good in deep learning, and means sometimes they come to me and say that I want to create a startup. So they don't even have a concept or an idea. It's in a very premature stage, and they don't have a defined legal entity yet. They haven't formed a legal entity. So those type of aspiring entrepreneurs, they fall under the pre-incubation program. Now those are the ideal students. In fact, I would say but incubation is little bit about mature, and you can call it, there are some government recognized TBIs, and where they will take you in only if you have a business plan or a business model, or sometimes they will expect you to have an MVP. Now MVP is a minimum viable product, so that means you can, for them to take in for their program. So as an advisor, it becomes our duty to help them come up with an idea, help them discover the problem, and then come up with an idea, then help them facilitate and create a prototype, and then eventually help them form a team, the top level team, the co-founders. Then you can help them in registering as a company. In fact, like predominantly the startup companies are registered as private limited companies for a lot of reasons, because it has this limited liability. So as a student or as a means faculty entrepreneur, you know that you don't want to register as a proprietorship or as a firm. It is always advisable to register as a private limited company, because the liability is limited in one aspect, and many future investors who come in, like, they prefer to invest in a company that is a private limited company. But of course, some start with an LLP also, and then they move on to a private limited company. But it's my personal thing that, from whoever I have got an advice from, start accountant or anyone, that they would say that, while you are starting, it's better going for a private limited company. No doubt it requires a lot of compliances to be followed, but I would say that it is the ideal way to form a legal entity, you know. But you don't want to form it right away. There's a stage, or once you form a team, once you come up with an idea, once you have certain business models to it, and have created something, and you have already been started developing your MVP, then at that time, it's good for you to, register your company as a private limited company, or means any other legal entity in which you wish to. Now, again, there is one more thing. There is something called accelerator, and there is a pre-incubator and an incubator and an accelerator. So, as I said, pre-incubator comes in a seed stage. It's starting from the seed, as I said, and means we just create a startup. Maybe it comes in the sprouting stage, and then when you are an incubator, you just grow your company. That takes for another 1 or 2 years, and when you really want to go for an expansion stage, it's more targeted thing, and I think you would have heard about Y Combinators and yours. They do a lot of virtual acceleration program now. So once you have formed a company, a team, and you already have some kind of a revenue, then I think it would be an ideal time to apply and get inside an accelerator, where you want to scale up and really you want to expand your business at that stage. So that is very far away. And as I said, means we would be concentrating from seed to sprouting. Now, there are students who come from tier 3 or tier 4 or from a village, that don't know the definition of startup. The only thing they miss is they don't know how to talk. The startup jargons, means what these urban entrepreneurs used to talk, but they are good in everything. They are as good as these urban entrepreneurs are. In fact, they are far better than them in some other things. So you don't have to worry about knowing what is startup or anything, as long as you have a desire to start a company, or or a desire to start something, or to solve a problem, or you're passionate about something in life apart from being, to go and take a regular 9 to 5 job. If you're not of that category, then startup ecosystem is there, ready to help you. The good thing is that AICT has come up with a policy where they encourage both the faculty, staff, as well as the students. So that is the beauty of it. So anyone want to start a startup, they can form. So, if you talk about the life cycle of a startup, now this is very interesting. See, currently everybody follows design thinking methodology, and we do the same thing in the startup cycle. We start with the problem discovery stage, because we don't want to jump into an idea stage just because I have an idea, just because I'm good in some technology, and we wouldn't recommend that. So it's always good to start in the problem discovery stage, and I think you have to spend a significant amount of time, of course, to means the whole startup creation process, that is 3 to 6 months. I would say you spend at least a month or two in the problem discovery stage, and then of course, it's a whole process. I'll define you in the latest, in the later slides. So till you reach a startup stage, there is 3 to 6 months period. Now this is a crucial stage. Um, because starting a startup is the toughest thing in the whole startup cycle, I would say. So, how to start there? This is where many people get stuck. And, they have dreams, they have passion, but they don't know exactly how to take the next steps. So, this is where the most means of the helps are needed by an entrepreneur. You can see this startup cycle presented in a gist over here. Now, if a higher education institution or a college, if they want to set up a pre-incubator as defined by AICTE, then you have to offer certain things like, from an intellectual side, how you're going to offer the physical or other facilities, the lab facilities, what you are going to offer. And apart from the other soft services, what you are going to make, what you give to these startups. So the first one, mainly in terms of training, as a college, you are good in that. Am I right? Like giving a webinar or organizing a workshop like today's FDP also, like how do you get in a coach, a startup coach, and you help these aspiring entrepreneurs, not just giving a pure motivational talk, because, I've seen that it didn't work for some reason, and that people who attended that motivational talk or anything, they just listen and they leave, so they don't come to the further steps. So as I said, that when you bring in a structure and it's a continuous process instead of discrete from the day one, then whatever the program you do, everything means means it will add benefit to that entrepreneur who really wants to start a startup, rather than just targeting a big audience. If you have a target, if you segment that whole population into a really into a really aspiring means target, so you figured out that in a very early stage and you start giving the training, it will absolutely work fine. So that's what I have seen. The result will be amazing, rather than focusing on everyone. Means in any given institutions, even in IITs, IIMs, you go, or even in top tier 1 or tier 2 colleges, everywhere it's the same thing, because there are only 1 or 2% of the people who are entrepreneurial max. So for the second thing we have to give is, of course, the space. And space is immaterial now. Everywhere you go, every college or every university is ready to provide thousands and thousands of square feet of office space for free for these entrepreneurs in their campus. The TBIs, they are setting up the campus and they require minimum 7,000 square feet of the area to set up the technological business park. So, giving space alone does not add value to the entrepreneurs, because now most of the things are even happening virtually. Am I right? So they don't even need a co-working space, but they all work remotely, and they have done everything online in a seamless way. So co-working space may help in a hardware related startup where they have to do some experiment in labs. They need a hardware components to that, and they need to have the internet facilities. So those are the physical things, the nearest from infrastructure standpoint, that an incubator or pre-incubator has to offer to these aspiring entrepreneurs. So said that, the third thing, the other services like how to connect or facilitate these kind of services to the entrepreneurs, like providing a legal service, bringing an attorney to them, bring a startup attorney means, or a lawyer, to prepare a legal agreement for them, and getting some human resources help for them, where the students and the faculty members can act as an intern in their company, or they can be in a managerial position also. And then all I have seen, the main flaw there I have seen in many entrepreneurs is that they're very young. They're very, very young. They're just in their 20s, and they just want to start up a company in the campus. So they don't have this financial prudence and the financial discipline, I would say. So they think that they need tons and tons of money to start a startup, and it's not true, because we have to teach them the financial discipline, so that it is very important, and that should be the part of the program where you bring in some financial advisors to teach them on how to be lean or being frugal in terms of spending. So these are the things in the tips they need in the very early stage, so that whenever they get any grant, they can use it wisely rather than misusing those grants.
So everyone know we are in the last stage.
Okay. Do I have some questions, because I was getting some? All right. So like I was saying, means they need to use these grants wisely, and lots and lots of grants are available for startup creation programs in campuses. So I would say now, um, all right. So like I was saying that now government as a central and state government, they have come up with the n number of ways to support the startups, and that too during the very early stage. So that is a very good news for you all. You know, the next thing is that how the industry connect you are going to provide, so that it is very important. And of course, everybody knows now that every college they support in IPR, because that's also good for them too. So these three things combined will make a good, good pre-incubator, I would say. So, said that, but why such initiatives now? Suddenly, all of a sudden, there are all the colleges and, there are institutions who haven't done this since our independence, I'll say that. So why all of a sudden these, past 3-4 years, everywhere we see incubation centers and they are being means popping up. The only reason is that all these years, the Education Institute has been focusing on the number of students they graduated or the job placement they did. And, that's going to be no more in the future. Maybe that might help in NIRF ranking, but, but going forward, there are two other rankings also, as you all know. ARIA ranking is there, and then IIC ranking is going to come up with, top 100 institutes who are supporting innovation and something. So they've already announced the result also recently. So, these capture the number of student startups and all the student startups which have been created in a campus. One thing, and the number of innovation that's been happened on, or means how many patents have been created in that campus. So AICTE has started measuring and quantifying this. So going forward, instead of putting more efforts on graduation job placement, if you can bring in little more, that you can, means you cannot, of course, you cannot do wonders, and you cannot bring 10-20% of the student population to create a startup, because that's very, it's kind of an Herculean task, I would say. But it's not helping your student. But once you set up an incubation or a pre-incubation center, it's open to the public. Then anyone can be a part of your incubation center, and you can bring in incubatees from outside too. So apart from focusing your student incubators, you can bring in more incubators and you can create more startups. That would bring your ranking apart from the NIRF ranking, I would say. It will take you top in ARIA ranking and IIC. So that's where all universities in higher education are moving on since 2019. So the only reason is because these student entrepreneurs, in fact, will create job. Post COVID, and means even now during this time, we all are feeling this pain that, I mean, there are lots of job losses and people are getting fired. So the only thing that can solve this problem is, we create more startups, and these startup entrepreneurs are going to give lots of job to people down the road, because unless you don't create more startups, by using these entrepreneurs, we are not going to fix this job growth. So it's very important, and it has a very big impact on the socio-economic growth of the country. So, say that I would like to talk a little bit about the NISP policy. And, for more information, you can obviously visit mic.gov.in. So see, they talk about two things: pre-incubation and incubation center. Now, this is not for the students, but yes, for the faculties or the management. You can note down this, like, if you feel like. So pre-incubation need not be registered as a separate legal entity, a Section 8 company, or as a society under the Societies Act, But an incubation center definitely should be registered, as a special purpose vehicle, because they call it as SPVs, because of course all the educational institutes are registered as a trust. So the trustees, they can do so because education is a service oriented business. But when you create an incubation center in your campus, it's more like dealing with businesses and startups. So that's the reason the government encourages now the trustees of that education institute to form a special purpose vehicle under the trust, so that they can intake incubatees, and they can have formal agreement with them. They can take shares in their company. So it's like a regular business unit. They can function within the education institution. So it's a great advantage of being registered as an SPV. So I would recommend, if you haven't formed an SPV, please go ahead and register an SPV or a Section 8 company. So that is one good thing. And then there are some colleges even considering to register the pre-incubation center too. But if you are registering your incubation center, you don't need to have to register yourself in two places, like one for the pre-incubation and other for the incubation. You don't have to do that. That will be a redundant thing to do. If you haven't done yet, maybe, but still you won't be able to support entrepreneurs. You can have co-incubation partnership with other institutions. If some of the colleges, they have, so they don't have some kind of a facility, and it means you all are very welcome to have a co-incubation partnership with that. And over there means you can leverage whatever the facilities we have at the same time, and we can take support from means other colleges also. So it's like creating a startup ecosystem. Now, I'm going to tell the policy benefits of these student entrepreneurs. So, like, if we have any students, means they can also note it down. Means whatever means I have highlighted over here. So, the first thing is that if you are a student entrepreneur and if you are in a final year or in a pre-final year, you are allowed to sit in for an examination for any year. If your attendance is less, if you are working on innovation or as an entrepreneur, as a startup, and if even you have a minimum permissible percentage for your attendance, you are still allowed to be sit for the final examination or whatever the semester examination is, as per the decision of the university or the education after the due approval from them. So this is one good news, I would say. You have to take advantage of this. The second thing is, of course, you like if you haven't attended the whole semester and you're working on your startup or innovation, you can take a year break and then you can come back and you can definitely retake the semester by sitting in the class, and you can appear for the means, and you can rejoin the academics and complete the course. And means all these things can be done only after taking the due approval of the college or the university. So that is another great thing. Now there are two things. One is like student entrepreneurs who are part-time, means like, let me do my startup in the evening, after 4 to 6 or after 4 or 6 o'clock, after my college hours, basically. That is one thing. But sometimes, some days you may not be able to attend the whole class, and that is absolutely fine. You can get permission from the committee, means whoever is in the pre-incubation committee of your institute or in the incubation committee. You just talk to them, get a letter, and definitely means even if your attendance is less, you can do that. The second thing, as a second thing. Now, as I said that the next thing is that if you want to go for a break, say for example for 6 months at a stretch, you want to do a startup creation program, or you want to start some venture and you want to work on that full time, you are good to go, and you can come back and rejoin means after a year, so that it is also possible. The third thing which I mentioned is that you may earn credits to academic credits. Now, many colleges and universities, they have created entrepreneurship related program for the students, and students, irrespective of means, being in any year, they attend these programs and they get the academic credit for it. It can be between 1, 2 or 3 credit depending upon the institution. So that is also one good thing. And if you want to know more about this, you can always visit the central government website, mic.gov.in, and you'll get more information from there. So another great news is, it's a phenomenal thing that AICTE has done. Even the staff members, means not only the full-time faculty members in the campus, even the staff members, they can hold and execute the managerial position in the startup. And if it's for more than 3 months, they can have a sabbatical, or they can go on a leave for a year or so, or they can come back and leave without pay for 1 year, and they can come back and then they can rejoin. And then there might be a scenario that if they are dedicating only 20% of their academic or administrative time to startup, of course means they can parallelly do, still they can get the salary, plus they can dedicate that 20% of the office time on the startup, or on a consultative, or as a on a consultative role. They can definitely be part of it. And in fact, AICTE is encouraging every faculty member to at least mentor one startup. So that is one great thing, I would say, to take advantage. So you can spend 20% of your time on mentoring the startup, or means running a startup. If you want to run a startup, that's amazingly great. So definitely means you can take leave for 6 months or 1 year, on you can establish your startup, and then of course you can come and rejoin as a faculty member later on. And means you get you can give support to all the players inside the campus also. So the management should also consider this as a legitimate activity of the faculty members. Means apart from the R&D work or the teaching they do, if they help a startup in advising or in a consulting role, I think they would definitely do this now, because based on this policy document, of course.
இருந்தா போதும். இப்படின்னா சொல்லலாம். உங்ககிட்ட வந்து யாருன்னா என்ன கேட்டாங்க? யாருன்னா என்ன பண்ணாங்களா?
I believe someone's mic is on.
ஷோபா பொண்ணு எனக்கு முன்னாடில இருந்து பாத்துக்கிறாங்க பாவம். தமிழ்நாட்டுல முடிஞ்சிச்சு. நம்ம நினைச்சிருந்தா எப்படி முடிஞ்சு போயிருக்கு தமிழ்நாட்டு பக்கம்.
Okay, am I good to go? All right, thank you. So, like I was saying, that instead of engaging the faculties only in R&D work, means they can, and based upon this policy also, means it will be very easy for you to help all the students inside the campus. Okay, so now coming to the student point of view. So, whether we do program or any webinar, if a student means he wants to be an entrepreneur, he would definitely be in. Then you might ask that what is the advantage of starting a startup with the help of pre-incubators or with the pre-incubation advisors or mentors? So the first thing is that because the students, they are very, very young. In fact, means like I told that they start even in their 18s or 19s or 20s, and they want to start a startup, but they don't know how the startup ecosystem works. It's not like a regular business, like you really want to raise fund down the road, and you need to structure your startup in a way that you need to have a lot of legal documentations in place, and you need to learn a lot of jargons, and this is going to take some time. So pre-incubators are great for you, and apart from that, means you get a free co-working space from the college, and arranging a webinar like this or arranging a workshop is eventually going to help you in terms of expanding the network or contacts with the startup ecosystem. So that is another great thing. So now see, as per the statistics, 90% of the startups fail. Now means they fail within the 5 years of their launch, and more than 50% of the startups fail immediately within like 2 years. So maybe it sounds negative. I am a startup mentor, but I say that if you start now, there is a probability that it will fail 90% of the time. So it's really shocking news. So why it fails, what we have to find out is that many of the student entrepreneurs, they are not matured enough. They are very inexperienced because they are very young. They haven't exposed themselves to the real world or, to any real thing. So you need to have the right mix of co-founders, meaning the promoters in the context of the private limited company, So we have these 4 things, when you form a company, you have a hustler, you have a hacker, you have a hipster, and you have a holder. So understanding this is very important. You have to figure out in what genre you are in and in what character you fall into. One cannot be everything. So some entrepreneurs are very good in social intelligence. Maybe their IQ is not that great, or their grades are very poor, but it doesn't matter. But they know that how to swim through the difficulties, and they're very much focused. They have this very important thing called social intelligence. They know how to move things up, and they know how to get the things done, how to build a team. So if a high IQ person, meaning a hacker or a programmer or a really very smart engineer who want to start a company, I would say, maybe you can address him as a hustler. So he knows how to sell. So, nobody can start a startup alone, because many people say that they can do, but the answer is clear no. How you build your team, that your top management team, how you get your co-founders in this early stage, that is the great thing that you need to consider. I would say that college days are the best days for you to get all this done, right? Trust me, means when the students graduate, nobody is going to listen to you, nobody is going to help you out. So if you are inside a college, maybe in your final year, you can just plan this, that how to come up with the co-founding team, and talk to your college, and you can avail grants and then everything to start a startup. I think this is the right time. Means we all are lucky that we are living in the golden era of startups and the student community. So I would say that this right makes, we need to delve deep into it, and means you can always approach your mentors to find the right co-founder mix. So you don't always have to form a team among the students. It's always good that if you have one or two as your co-founding team who is an experienced person who has worked in industry, so that is advisable. So before we move, let me show you this video.
I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did.
We are going to make it or break it based on whether we can provide products to higher education and services and relationships to higher education that no one else provides. And I think we ought to spend 100% of our time thinking about that. And if we can't do that, then we ought to go broke.
And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love, and that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, and don't settle. So keep looking, don't settle.
So means this is very, very important. You need to find what you love, and I am and I'm stressing it again over here that 90% chance are there that it will fail, but only 10% will be successful. So we have to focus that how to get in that 10%. Now that is very important to know. So how to avoid all these failures. Now there are the top 10 reasons for failure in the pre-incubation stage. Every stage has its own risk, and we need to know how to avoid these risks or putting a foundation in your early stage. It is very, very important. So this is where the startup programs come in picture, where they fix all these holes, and we call them as the failure hole. So you don't end up in very drastic failure in the startup creation itself. As I said, means you can mitigate those risks by avoiding certain things. So there are 10 reasons, like a mantra you can make a note of it. Like if you're not fit to be an entrepreneur but still you want to start a startup, then get along with a really passionate, aspiring entrepreneur who has fit in a sense, who doesn't want to take a risk, who is not financially prudent, who is scared of failure. Of course, as I said that 90% they fail, but no, I don't want you to take means I don't want to take the full-time job, or I have a family pressure. Time and time you need to focus on this thing. You can build something if it's impossible. So but the only way to build something is that if you set your mind up to it. So if you've decided that after graduation, or after a particular time period, you want to go full time into this for a year, of course, I've met a lot of students in the past. They say that, I'm the only breadwinner of the family and I don't go to work, or if I don't go to work, I won't be able to make 10 to 15,000 per month, and it's going to take a toll on my family. Every person has a different stage in which he can means start a startup. So we have to be very clear. We have to make a clear game plan of how you're going to generate the revenue and make it sustainable. So that means you will start making revenue through your company rather than you are doing part-time startup thing. If you are doing a startup, you need to give your focus entirely to it. So like if you're working somewhere and doing a startup part-time, it's not going to work in the long run, because the failure rate will be in fact more. So how can you plan ahead, and how means you can bring early revenue? These are the things which gets embedded in the pre-incubation program. So as I said, getting a right co-founder is very important. So second thing is that many students say that I just love this technology, I want to build this, and I love artificial intelligence, so I want to develop this algorithm, or I want to develop this coding. It does not work like that. So you have to be a design thinker, and you have to come from a problem. So don't jump into the product right away saying that I know I want to build this, I have done this, or means I'm fascinated with it. What will happen? It means you will end up in a product that nobody wants. And then if you end up in a product which nobody wants, then how will you sell that? It will be very hard even for the hustler to sell. Maybe he can sell 1 or 2 times, but you have to get a recurring customer, in order to generate revenue. So you need to understand the intricacies of how you engage with your customer and what your customer actually needs from day one. So if you want to start a startup, go and meet your customer, go and talk to them, understand them, have an empathy, what problem they are facing and what solution you have for them. Next, setting up an MPV is very important. Now, MPV should capture the value proposition, what real value you are going to give to the customers, but with minimum functionality. You don't want to add a lot of complexities to an MVP. You don't need that, because you don't have time and money. And with small amount of money, you have to build something valuable for the community. Remember, you have to do that with very less resource. You have to assume that you have only finite resources. You should not end up in loss or something. Even for opening petty shop today along a roadside, you need 2 to 3 lakhs. But with this pre-incubation programs, you can commence your startup even with a lakh. That's an amazing thing, because you can validate your idea, launch your MVP, and then generate revenue quickly. So means the next thing for failure is that they are obsessed with someone else's product and with their competitors. You don't have to get obsessed with it. Instead, means you can talk to your customers, means what they want. Maybe that might be something your company will not have done. So apply blue ocean strategy, and we have more means move away from them and think out of the box. Definitely means you can create something means very new to the market. And sometimes it has happened that customers, they themselves give them the idea. Customers today is very innovative, and they know what they need. So instead of getting obsessed with some other's product, talk with the customer, try to get to know what their demand is, and then you can start working on it. And please don't get obsessed with the competitors. Of course you have to watch out for your competitors, but don't get obsessed with it. Because getting obsessed with the competitors will increase the chances of failure. So the next problem is that many people, they start chasing investors, because they assume that just because they are in the startup world, they think, the investors will come in the day one and they are going to pump in money for them. It's not going to happen. Even in fact, post-COVID also means nobody is going to give you money, because people who don't have revenue themselves, how can they give you money? So your goal should be to get at least first 100 customers, who will be automatically validate your product and idea. Your market product fit will be the perfect, your market product fit will be perfect only if you have the first 100 customers who are paying you regularly. And if that happens in the first 6 months or 8 months, you will have a continuous revenue generation model. So don't chase the customers, rather customers will chase you eventually. There is a very bad notion in the startup world that some angel investors will come like an angel and they will throw money from the rooftop. Nobody is going to give you money like that. So who's going to give you money? Your customers are going to give you money. So always be customer centric. Don't fall for the idea. I can throw you 100 ideas right now by sitting here and about this startup. But the main thing is that how you execute those ideas. That is what is important, and that is what matters. Just by listening to a lot of motivational talks and by thinking that you will be an entrepreneur will not make you a successful entrepreneur. you have to start to execute an idea. Without execution, it's just a hallucination. Just because you have an idea does not mean that you are great. Nobody's going to copy that. If you protect that, of course, means with the IPR, but you can make a prototype or something, whether it's a soft prototype or an ugly prototype or a good prototype. So you have to execute your idea. Execution is the key. So don't just keep talking, because I have seen many people who are just who just keep talking and talking, and in the end, they don't materialize. So the next thing about failure is to not being frugal or lean. They don't learn. They don't have that financial discipline or prudence. So that is also one of the major cause for the failure. And means the last one is the product miss time. So you should know when to launch the product. In our management we are taught the 4 P's of the marketing. So you should know when to launch the product, where to launch the product, who are the people. For certainly sometimes the product should not take much time to launch because there will be more competition, or sometimes you are too early to launch the product because the market is not ready for you. So you cannot go and launch, if I give you an example, like you cannot go and launch any internet business in some mountains where there is no internet. So you should know the timing, and you should know that my product is fittable or validated for which particular location. You should know the timing of the business, when you should launch. So these were few of the reasons why the startups fail. So it is quietly said that only the startup businesses fail, but not true entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs, they know how to bounce back. They know how to renounce. They know how to get up again with the pre-incubation programs. So the entrepreneurs, they know how to pivot themselves. They know how to minimize the risk very quickly. And of course they have the appetite to take risk. If you're not having the appetite to take risk, you cannot be an entrepreneur. So that's the another thing. But how many of you are willing to take that risk? But taking the risk is one thing, but you should also know how to mitigate that risk. It does not matter even if you have started a product, and if the product is not fit for the market, you take the criticism from the market. You then make certain changes in the product and then relaunch that into the market. So criticism always moves you forward. So like I said, that customer is the key for any successful business startups. So you should forget all the competitors, and you should just focus on your customers, number one. And you should start engaging with your customers, because happy customers are your best customers. And even in fact sometimes you should start interacting with the customers not from the day one. Rather, I would say that you should start interacting with the customer from day 0 itself, right? Even like if you've got an idea, start interacting with the customers to validate that. So what are the outputs of this pre-incubation program? You get the maximum understanding of the problem, and you get maximum ideas can be generated. You get minimal workable prototype. You get minimal viable team. You get viable product. You get to know that how you can make your product fit for the market. You can find a solution for the market, and you can get a good co-founder for your particular team. So these are some of the outputs of pre-incubation programs. So startup world is full of hurdles, but before I conclude this session, I would like to apologize, because this video is going to involve some of the Hindi in it, but still some of the audience is not able to understand it. I'm pretty much sure the video itself is self-explanatory. So please bear with me and have this just as a minute video, and then we'll conclude.
जब दर्द का बादल छाया, जब गम का साया लहराया, जब आंसू पलकों तक आया, जब ये तन्हा दिल घबराया, हमने दिल को ये समझाया, दिल आखिर तू क्यों रोता है, दुनिया में यूं ही होता है। ये जो गहरे सन्नाटे हैं, वक्त ने सबको ही बांटे हैं, थोड़ा गम है सबका किस्सा, थोड़ी धूप है सबका हिस्सा। आग तेरी बेकार ही नम है, हर पल एक नया मौसम है। क्यों तू ऐसे पल खोता है, दिल आखिर तो क्यों रोता है? दिलों में तुम अपनी बेताबियां लेके चल रहे हो, तो जिंदा हो तुम। नजर में ख्वाबों की बिजलियां लेके चल रहे हो, तो जिंदा हो तुम। हवा के झोंकों के जैसे आजाद रहना सीखो, तुम एक दरिया के जैसे लहरों में बहना सीखो। हर एक लम्हे से तुम मिलो, खोले अपनी बाहें, हर एक पल एक नया समा देखिए निगाहें। जो अपनी आंखों में हैरानियां लेके चल रहे हो, तो जिंदा हो तुम। दिलों में तुम अपनी बेताबियां लेके चल रहे हो, तो जिंदा हो तुम।
So this video sums up the entire journey of an entrepreneur. When an entrepreneur starts his startup journey, he runs with full enthusiasm, but then comes the hurdles in his way. Means he gets many criticisms. His friends don't support him. Sometimes the society does not support him. But then ultimately, his determination is what takes him forward. And like Derek's father came to his support, incubators, pre-incubation centers, mentors, they are always there to support the startup people. They'll help them, they'll help an entrepreneur to reach his goal ultimately. And with this ultimately he can successfully complete his startup race. So when you don't give up now, you cannot fail. And that's what the startup journey is all about. So thank you so much for having me. I hope I did justice to the session allotted to me. I'm open for the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And that was indeed an energy-packed session, right from the start to the end. It was a very rich combo of information. That is what I felt. And of course, as entrepreneurship, it's definitely a field into which most of us would like to get into. But the thing is that in between, we'll start thinking about the steps like whether we are meant for that, or whether we will have to experience just some game of loss. So the output is that we will directly get out of that. But our students, on the other hand, they are just in the sprouting stage, and I definitely believe that there is a very significant need to give them the awareness of this field. So Atipriya sir, I would like to thank you very much for giving us a helping hand in all perspectives, and once again making us realize the beauty of startups. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
And sir, we are having few queries in the chat box. Let me read it out.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, the first one is, for a startup plan, you have told few steps. Can you suggest a minimum time spent to complete the formalities?
That depends. Like if you talk about the legal financial plan, that can be done in a couple of months. That does not take that much long, because like registering a company or like there are different kinds of companies. Like if you want to register as a sole proprietorship, you can always start your startup as a sole proprietor, but that's not advisable. But setting up a sole proprietorship is, it takes less stringent policies. It's less time consuming. It does not involve that complexities. But like if you are establishing a private limited company, that involves time in it, that involves certain documentations to be submitted, that involves means some legal compliances to be followed. So means if on an average, if I say, means a month or 2 months would be the ideal time for setting up the legal means entity, so that you can start a startup. Registering with the Startup India or registering yourself with the DPIIT, that does not take much time, because you only need to submit your documents, and you only need to, or means even getting a Uddam certificate also, means you only need to means set that startupindia.gov.in, means that's that website has come up very means it's quite an informative website, and means it's quite an innovative website, because it takes very less time in registering a startup with the DPIIT.
Okay, so the next question is, will the internship help for development of startup?
Yes, definitely. I've means if I'll quote you from my own personal experience, like when I was mentoring one of the healthcare startup, that time means a few of the team members, they were means, although one of the team member was a technocrat, but he was not quite means familiar with the coding languages. So getting him, means when I asked him to get an internship with the developer, he got to know the intricacies of coding, and he was able to perform the means algorithm more means efficiently. So internship definitely helps the startups, because many means founders or many team members or many persons who are going to start with the startup journey, means they might be good in one thing, but for the other thing they need to take some internship or some training. So definitely training always helps you out.
So the next one is, for a startup, is there any age limit legally fixed?
No, there is no age limit for starting a startup. You can, you all know Colonel San Andres. He started with KFC at the age of 75. You can, whenever you want to start, whenever means you want to start a startup, you can start. And means, many, although means we said that many young means budding entrepreneurs are coming up, because they are fascinated by the startup journey. Many unicorns are popping up, and they just feel that means if I'll enter into the startup world, maybe in 5 years or maybe in few years I'll also be a unicorn. But they don't see this real fact that most of the successful startups, they are in their 40s or they are in their late 30s. So means there is no legal age for that. But yes, taking the experience first, or means taking the training, doing the internships, understanding the intricacies of the startup, understanding the nuances of these startup jargons, means then it's advisable to enter into this world, because it's a vicious circle, because it is attractive, but it's kind of like a quicksand. Means once you enter into it, you'll be dragged more deep and deep into it. So you need to means understand first the whole startup ecosystem, because startup ecosystem works entirely different than the normal business. So you need to understand first how startup ecosystem works, and then you can jump into it.
Thank you, sir. So any other queries from the participants end?
Actually, that is a minimum age legally fixed. That's what the question I wanted to ask.
Minimum age, sir, like I have seen many entrepreneurs who are doing means startup even at the age of 8 years. We have a person in Jalandhar, means who has his own startup at the age of 8. But yes, although means he is the startup, means he's an entrepreneur, but he is guided by the guardian, means his father is the guardian, until he reaches the legal age of 18 years. So means as per the common understanding, 18 years is the minimum age in which you can register yourself as a legal person.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the precise clarification, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
So after this wonderful session, definitely our resource person will be waiting to hear from your side, participants. So it will be better if someone from your end can come forward and give a feedback on this session, please.
Good afternoon, sir. Myself, Amira from Science and Humanities Department. And sir, this session was very interactive and very interesting, and because it profited all the participants, me, because I'm teaching the management subject, and I hear a lot of experience from this session, and I'm sure that I will share this concept in my classroom also. And thank you, sir. I really appreciate hearing about your creative work, and it helped me to feel more confidence in these areas. Such a great session, really comprehensive and appropriate for lots of experience, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
Once
much.
again, I thank you, sir.